Hello, and it's time for Wednesday Warfare, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back-to-back and try and figure out which show won for the week. And hey, for the first time in several weeks, both shows are on Wednesday night. Fancy that. As always, like what you like, don't be a dick. Let's begin. Your opening match on NXT is a non-title affair as Io Shirai takes on Shotzi Blackheart, and I just loved this match here. I think these two worked really well against each other. I love the story here because at first, Io's not taking Shotzi too seriously, but ultimately Shotzi kind of makes her wise up to it, and then it's very aggressive and competitive. Some great back and forth here in this thing. At one point, Io hits Shotzi with a German suplex, a high-angle German suplex on the damned apron. That looked sick. Ultimately, the match ends when Io hits her moonsault, mostly with her knees because Shotzi was a bit too far out in the ring for Io to win the match up here. We see some sportsmanship between the two of them, and I just thought it was a hell of an opener and a great star-making performance for Shotzi here. It's probably one of the best displays she's had in a while, especially in kind of a singles capacity here. I think commentary did a great job putting her over as well. You love to see it. Up next, Tommaso Ciampa takes on Desmond Troy. Oh, I'm sorry, don't you mean Denzel DeJournette? Don't think I've forgotten his old name. I still recognize the singlet. Speaking of attire, Ciampa's got a cool new kind of Casey Jones-inspired mask for his entrance gear. It's the first time I've noticed it. I don't know how long he's had it since he's come back, but I thought it was a cool-looking mask here. Pretty short and academic. Ciampa wins with the Widow's Bell. And then after the match, Jake Atlas shows up, and he still has some more words toward Ciampa after their encounter a couple of weeks ago. And Atlas says he wants a match with Ciampa next week. Earlier in the day, Drake Maverick shows up to Full Sail, very optimistic about his chances with his new partner Killian Dain, but the optimism seems to wane as he continues to talk. And then we see a Finn Balor promo where he says that him being champion instantly makes the NXT Championship the most prestigious or the most important title across all three brands, and he tells all his challengers to get in line and to look both ways before you cross the Prince. Then back in the ring, Austin Theory is in there. He's got a microphone talking about how great he is, and he issues an open challenge, and it's KUSHIDA who comes out with no music. He's all business, comes right in the ring, starts beating up Austin here, and it's a pretty one-sided affair once the bell officially rings. KUSHIDA's working heavily on Austin's arm. The one moment of hope that Austin has on the outside, he throws a forearm shot, but he ends up hitting the ring post instead. KUSHIDA drops him with like a single arm takedown onto the floor, then gets him in the hoverboard lock in the ring. Austin immediately taps out. A little extra mustard on that hold after the bell rings, and that's all she wrote. It's crazy how fast Austin Theory seems to have fallen the last couple of weeks. From when he first came back to TV, he loses a competitive, good match with Bronson Reed last week, and then this one, he doesn't get out the gate. He was just destroyed here by KUSHIDA. So it's kind of interesting to see where Austin's trajectory is right now, but a really cool in-ring return and very good way to get over the aggressive side of KUSHIDA they've been talking about. The Garganos cut a cell phone promo here, and Candice LeRae's talking at first, then Johnny Gargano makes his way into the shot. He's complaining about the fact they're watching TV in the guest room since the TV from last week was still destroyed as a result of their fight with Tegan Knox in the living room and everything. There's still spaghetti all over the room. And so Candice talks about how she's going to win the Battle Royal next week to see who the new #1 contender is. Johnny buys a new 100-inch TV on the spot in the middle of the promo. And then he talks about the main event tonight with Crooked Tooth Thatcher and Bootleg Slash, which are some great insult names. Pretty funny promo here by the Garganos. And then we go to our next match for the NXT Tag Team titles as BREEZANGO have their first offense against the team they beat for it originally, Imperium. Imperium started off very strong in this matchup here, really isolating Fandango and beating him up for the bulk of the match, for the first part of it at least. Breeze is a house of fire in the hot tag, and a lot of great back and forth once Breeze is tagged in, and Fandango gets some licks in as well. Big super kicks on the outside and everything. Great double team moves by the challengers in this matchup here. They go for a European bomb onto Breeze, but it's thwarted, and Tyler ends up hitting the victory roll to win the match for his team, and so they retain the championships. A great match, probably the most invested I've been in an Imperium match in quite some time, if not ever. Women's tag match up next as Xia Li and Jessie Kamea take on Kaden Carter and Casey Catanzaro. It's a short match, but I love that it's just constant action from bell to bell. All four ladies look really good here in this matchup. Ultimately, Team K, Casey and Kaden, win the match after a unique pinning combination from both ladies onto Xia. Good little match here, and we see some sportsmanship between the three Ks, that's Casey, Kaden, and Kamea, but Xia Li refuses and she bails out. Very interesting. But yeah, short match, but a good one. We get a promo promo from Tegan Nox with a rebuttal on what Candice said earlier and how she said she just wanted her friend back last week, but she didn't get that. Says that she'll be the one who wins the Battle Royal next week. Elsewhere in Full Sail, we see Drake Maverick and Killian Dain having some problems where, again, Drake's very optimistic. He wants his tag team to work out, but Killian's not ready to wrestle. He doesn't want to be Drake's partner, didn't sign up for it, so he says he's on his own. And so we go to that match now as Drake Maverick pretty much takes on the Undisputed Era of Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish by himself. He's getting his dick kicked in is a more accurate way to describe what happens in this thing. We cut to the back and we see Killian kind of laughing it up backstage, watching on the monitor with other wrestlers and referees, until finally GM Regal shows up and just basically browbeats him into going out there and wrestling in the match. Killian finally shows up, but he's going to just kind of like throw Drake to the wolves again. As he's walking away, Roderick Strong calls him fat, which sets him off. He gets back in the ring and he cleans house. The match does end in a DQ when Fish hits Dain with a chair, but then Killian ends up chasing the Undisputed Era off. So they win by disqualification. Drake's very happy about this as he and Killian stand tall, and then Killian just punches Drake in the face again and walks off. So poor Drake. But that being said, I am liking this storyline, this kind of unlikely partnership between Killian and Drake. Well, you know, every time we see stuff like this, it always ultimately ends up with the unlikely duo kind of becoming partners, this unlikely friendship thing. It's cliche, but when it's done right, it feels so good, and I have good optimistic feelings. Much like Drake Maverick, I am very optimistic this is going to work out. And I'm going to say it again. I said it last week, I'm going to say it again. You write this down. They're going to be the next Dusty Classic winners. Outside the arena, Jake Atlas is being interviewed about what he said to Ciampa earlier, and he says he's got a file under him now. Ciampa jumps him from behind mid-sentence and beats him up for a bit until some officials like Scotty 2 Hotty and Steve Corino come and break it up. And then Kyle O'Reilly, who wasn't even involved with his friend's matchup just moments before this, is hanging out the outside of the building, and he kind of like chastises Ciampa for what he's doing to Atlas. He's like, parking lot beatdowns? Come on, man, what's the deal with that? Very ironic moment from Kyle O'Reilly there. And Ciampa leaves, and we find out that Ciampa and Atlas will have their match next week. Also next week, William Regal announces that he's going to have an Elimination Chamber match without the Elimination Chamber. It's a basic same premise of two guys in the ring wrestling, and then as time goes on, more people will be added in, and then there's eliminations, and the last man standing will be the new #1 contender to face Finn Balor at TakeOver. Man, William Regal, man, or whoever's booking NXT, loves the multi-mans to crown a new champion or a new #1 contender. They love that shtick. Main event time as Damian Priest defends the North American Championship for the first time against Timothy Thatcher. It's a big contrast of styles here because old T-Thatch is very much ground game, mat game, submissions and everything, never leaves his feet, while Damian is a power guy who also has very explosive, kind of high-flying moves in his arsenal here. T-Thatch working Priest's arm pretty extensively here, going back and forth between the arm and the leg, but the arm is the bigger focus because Damian's arm's kind of hurting almost from the very beginning. But in the end, Damian with a top rope spinning heel kick and the Reckoning to win the match. And that was a damn fine main event too. I've really warmed up to Damian Priest in the last several months. I think he's really hitting his stride. Him with the North American Championship puts him on that kind of higher pedestal, which I think is good for his character right now. And Thatcher always looks great, and so I think this match actually worked really well. Yeah, it was a fine main event, and overall, a really strong episode of NXT. Well, NXT began with a non-title match, and so does AEW this week, FTR taking on the Jurassic Express. Before the match begins, though, the Young Bucks show up in their street clothes. They just walk in the ring, super kick the referee, and leave. And then they go to the back, and they have a big stack of bills, and they throw it in Tony Khan's lap to pay the fine from last week, and presumably for this week as well. Ooh, those evil, mysterious Bucks. I'm really curious to see where they're headed as this darker, edgier version of themselves. As the match goes on, Jungle Boy takes a lot of the heat from FTR until he finally tags in Luchasaurus, who, like I said before, has the best damn hot tag in AEW today. Jungle Boy gets back in the ring and looks really good against Dax and Cash. Kind of has an answer for everything they're doing. Lots and lots of pinfall attempts in those last couple of minutes in the match from Jungle Boy Jack. Luchasaurus dives into the crowd once again, the second time in 3 or 4 weeks. Finally, FTR work together and do some sneaky leverage work with a pinfall here to pin Jungle Boy and win the match. I thought it was a really fun opening contest here and really sets the tone for the rest of the episode, because if you like tag team wrestling, AEW likes to deliver on that, and they certainly have a lot of big tag matches on this show, and this is a really great way to kick that off. We go backstage and find Matt Hardy is writhing on the ground in pain, grabbing his leg. Somebody attacked him in a sneaky manner. Private Party is there kind of standing over him, figuring out what to do. Suddenly, almost jumping into the shot simultaneously, are Chris Jericho and Jake Hager feigning concern and pretending to be, worried about Matt's health, but it's a lie. Go figure. Up next, Hangman Page goes one-on-one with Frankie Kazarian. Two tag team guys going in singles action here. Kenny Omega joins the guys on commentary in this matchup and spends the whole time kind of reiterating that he's done with tag team wrestling for now, and throws a lot of shade at Hangman Page in this match too. At one point when Page is coming back and has a big offensive flurry, Omega's kind of laughing. I can't believe he's doing this well. The match itself is great. I think they gave Page and Kaz a lot of time to put together something really solid here. Great back and forth. The crowd's hot for it. Ultimately, Hangman wins with the buckshot lariat after a cool finishing sequence. Kenny says his goodbyes to the announce team, doesn't even acknowledge his former partner Hangman Page as he walks off. Page kind of looks sad. He drinks the beer kind of alone in the ring, looking kind of bummed out. But yeah, great stuff from these guys. MJF in action. He beats Shawn Dean in record time. Then he grabs the microphone and reiterates he never truly lost it all out because Jon Moxley cheated to win, so he should be referred to henceforth as the undefeated, undisputed, uncrowned AEW World Champion of All Elite Wrestling. Or if you wish to use the acronym, UAO KOAO. He has Justin Roberts call him by the full name. Then he alludes to the fact that he may want to join a group soon, a wolf pack as it were. And then he bids you adieu and he leaves and everything. I don't know how I feel about the idea of MJF joining a group, because I don't think they would have him drop that hint or kind of like, pay attention to this in the future, folks, if they weren't considering it or weren't going to do it. I think MJF works so much better as like a solo guy or like a leader of a group. I could see him starting a group. I don't know if him joining a group for me right now makes any sense for him. So a little nervous about that, about his future, his prospects or anything. Maybe he could, I could see him starting a group of actual like wrestlers and stuff, not just like campaign staff and everything and Wardlow. But we'll see where that shakes out, I guess. We get a Technique by Taz segment about Ricky Starks' big moves, and then we see Eddie Kingston and friends in the ring. Kingston has a few points to get across. One, he never lost the Battle Royal at All Out. Two, he has Butcher and Blade grab a couple guys from the front row of the crowd. It brings them into the ring, and they all beat the guys up while Eddie is doing running commentary, and it's hilarious as all four guys, the Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers, are beating the other two guys down. And then finally he wraps it up by telling the Blade he needs to get his house in order, and then they pose, and that's that. I still don't know why this group exists. I don't know what they're alluding to when Eddie Kingston singles out the Blade, says he gets his house in order. Don't know where that's going to go, but again, I'm loving Eddie Kingston promos. I'm loving this. It's a curious dynamic. It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't make sense, but I'm liking how Eddie is kind of like wrangling these guys together, and it kind of works in one respect. Private Party take on Chris Jericho and Jake Hager up next. Early in the match, Hager decks Isaiah Cassidy from behind with Jericho's baseball bat while the referee's not looking, and so Isaiah takes a lot of the heat in this thing. Mark Quinn with an insane hot tag. I love how he flies all over the place and gets some insane elevation here. Cassidy goes for a higher risk senton on Jericho, but he misses it. He gets hit by the Judas effect, and so Jericho pins to win. But Private Party get the last laugh because after the bell rings, Jericho tries to put some more of a beat down on Isaiah. Mark Quinn comes in and kicks Jericho in the dome, and so then the Inner Circle guys, the baddies, are running off there. It is some more that kind of 50-50 booking that we often criticize as a wrestling fandom, but I will say I think it's always impressive to see Jericho. He doesn't need to be the kind of guy who frequently gives back and sells so much for the younger talent, but he has done that. I think that's been one of his biggest hallmarks in AEW, aside from making everything he says into a t-shirt and releasing his own line of sparkling champagne or whatever, sparkling wine. He's been in a kind of a really good position to kind of help elevate younger stars. There was kind of a criticism when he was the champion that there was this perception that he wasn't elevating people. Maybe he hasn't elevated, I think he's elevated more people since losing the title than he has when he won it, but I think even then he was doing the same thing, and so now I think he's just doing more so of that, and I appreciate that. Thunder Rosa's back. She defends the NWA Women's Championship against IVELISSE. This is a great athletic, technical matchup here. Both ladies really good. Thunder kicks out of IVELISSE's roundhouse kick finisher, but she hits IVELISSE with her tombstone pile driver to win and retain the championship. Then after the match, Diamante jumps Thunder from behind. Then Hikaru Shida, the AEW Women's Champion, who's been sitting in the front row watching this whole match, she jumps the railing, gets in the ring, and helps make the save. And then she kind of looks at the NWA Women's title longingly and hands it to Thunder before she leaves. So are we going to get that rematch for the NWA title now at some point in the future? That'd be kind of a cool return match after what we saw it All Out. Kip Sabian cutting a promo while Miro's in the background doing bench presses. When he's done with his set, Miro gets up and says he's going to throw Kip the best bachelor party ever. I love the fact that Miro's official nickname now is the Best Man. I think it works on so many levels outside just the whole him being Kip Sabian's best man. He is the best man. He's the best at everything. I love that. So then we go in the ring where you can see Lance Archer and Jake Roberts cutting a promo. Lance Archer on his way to the ring, doing what he does best, beating up some poor schmuck on the way to the ring. And Jake Roberts addresses their need for some tag team partners for Archer and a six-man for next week. So he brings out Taz, who comes out and announces that Ricky Starks and Brian Cage will team with Lance next week. And then if Lance beats Moxley for the championship, then Brian Cage gets the first crack at the championship. That's the deal that they made. Then out comes Jon Moxley, who's about to say something when all of a sudden Starks and Cage jump in from behind. They were hiding in the audience as they're beating him up. Will Hobbs shows up with a chair and he chases them out of town and everything. The baddies run away. So Moxley announces Will Hobbs as his first tag team partner. And then he talks to the camera and says, Darby Allin, get your ass to Jacksonville, and we'll make it a six-man tag and everything. And that's where the segment ends. I think it's exciting to see Will Hobbs in this position. I gotta say, I'm really just happy for Will that he officially, as of today, has been signed by AEW. I've watched him grow and develop as a wrestler for the last several years in California. When he started, he was a skinny kid. He did not look at all like the guy you see now on TV. So to see his transformation and the work he's put in has been really impressive and is really inspiring to see. And he's put in the work in AEW. He's been there for a couple of months now, and he really deserves this. So I'm super happy for Will Hobbs, and he's getting thrown right in the thick of things, teaming up with the AEW World Champion next week in the six-man. How cool is that? In the main event, it's a parking lot fight for the honor of Sue and her minivan as the best friends take on Santana and Ortiz. I'm gonna say right off the bat, this match is off the rails insane from beginning to end. You cannot look away from this thing, and if you've not seen it yet, you should watch it. That being said, I'll tell you right now, the setting is very similar to the Iron Circle match in WWE, where it's like a circle of cars surrounding them. Santana and Ortiz have like dead presidents inspired face paint on as the match begins, and right away they're using the cars as weapons. They crush Ortiz a couple of times under the hood of one car. Ortiz suplexes Chucky T through onto another car. They break the rear windshield, spear through a door leaned up against the front of one car, and then a suplex into a guardrail on the other one. Things look perilous for the best friends though, because Trent's powerbombed onto the roof of one car and then thrown back first into the windshield of another car. Blood and shattered glass everywhere. Is this the end of the best friends? No, because out of a trunk pops Orange Cassidy with the chain in hand. He helps beat up the baddies and the tide has turned. You've got Chuck pile driving Santana onto the roof of one of the cars. Trent with the crunchy to Ortiz through like this wooden board in the bed of a truck. Pinfall, and the best friends win. And what an absolutely insane, brutal, fun car wreck of a match this was. I mean, car wreck, no pun intended, or maybe it was, because it was just insane. It was so memorable. It was so fun to watch. Then in the end, the three of them get picked up by Trent's mom, Sue, in her minivan. They pull off and drive off into the sunset, but not before Sue lifts up the single deuce towards Santana and Ortiz on the way out. That was just a great way to end the show. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, NXT or AEW Dynamite, and this week it's a straight up tie, folks. I cannot pick one over the other because both shows, in my opinion, were fantastic this week. I think across the board, the action was great. There was great openers on both shows, great main events on both shows, just good action, good promos. I had no complaints about NXT or AEW this week. Great night for wrestling overall. Go watch both shows if you can, because I think both have a lot to offer in terms of what they did in the ring and the characters they showed and the stories they told and everything. Yeah, I was just really happy at the end of the night. But let me know what you thought about AEW and NXT this week in the comments section below, and I'll see you once again on Friday night with my live SmackDown review, so please check that out. Until then though, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.